In 1990, a group of Swedish game developers known as Team 7 released their debut title on the Amiga, a budget release by Codemasters called Miami Chase. It was a top-down racing game inspired by the TV show Miami Vice. Now I know what you're thinking, something seems off with that logo. And you are correct, because by December 1990, Team 7 merged with British publisher 17-Bit Software and amalgamated into Team 17. Less than a year later, this team took the Amiga scene by surprise and showed they were a force to be reckoned with when they released the game Alien Breed. Alien Breed is a top-down Gauntlet style shoot 'em up, heavily inspired by the Alien movies. In each level you have to find the elevator down, shooting hordes of aliens and collecting keycards and other loot. Alien Breed was released to critical acclaim and received great scores in some of the biggest gaming magazines. A slew of sequels followed. The first ones remained 2D, but after the release of Doom, the series had to follow the trend and was converted to a true FPS. Over the years, the Alien Breed series has been released to almost any system imaginable, except the Atari ST. We did get some knockoffs, mostly PD, but they were actually pretty good. And that's today's mission. We will go deep into the history of some of these dark and deadly clones for the Atari ST. Are you ready for some scary alien stories? For Marcus, the journey began in 1983, when he first witnessed a research machine's 380Z at the after-school computer club. An older student managed to create a rudimentary game on this machine, and at that moment Marcus knew he wanted to create games. And as with so many aspiring programmers, it started with a Sinclair Spectrum. On this machine he taught himself the basic programming language, and of course Marcus spent hours playing classics like Football Manager, Jetpack and Manic Miner. But there was another important event that set things in motion. In 1985, Atari Games released Gauntlet in the arcades. Marcus got obsessed with the game. The machine ate a lot of his quarters. The 4-player gameplay was spectacular. Back at home, Marcus started working on his own project. After hours and hours of coding in his bedroom on the rubber Spectrum keyboard, he succeeded in finishing a crude game. In his program, you controlled an object, in this case a plus symbol, which was hunted down by numerous O symbols. He wanted to incorporate this game logic into a D&D setting, but his vision was far greater than his Spectrum coding skills, so the project got canned. Growing up, Marcus had a friend with a Commodore 64. They were always in heated discussions of the merits of both the ZX Spectrum and the C64, until the day this friend announced he had bought an Amiga. So to keep the rivalry going, Marcus bought an Atari ST around the same time. And that is when the fun really started. One day his friend showed him the game Alien Breed, telling him how amazing it was and that the ST could never do this. Marcus played it a few times and was instantly reminded of the game logic he had built on the ZX many years before. He got back into the coding chair, with a mission to build his own version of Alien Breed, implementing the logic he had already designed. He used Stos to help out in the project. Because he was not a graphics artist and did not have any talent in that department, most of the graphics were borrowed and changed by decompiling existing games. And after a full year of hard work, his game was finished and Storm was born. To make it all sound more professional, Marcus used the developer's name Fugitive Freelancers. This is a name he and a few of his computer club friends came up with during the 80s, but it was never used back then. Because Marcus felt very insecure about his programming skills and because the game was created using Stos, he never considered releasing it as a true commercial title. Instead, he decided to have it published as a PD licenseware game with LAPD. They asked him for an exclusive deal after seeing a demo of the game. And by 1993, Storm became available to the public, and for every disc sold, Marcus got a little cut. He was so excited. The first reviews of Storm were average, explaining the gameplay wasn't that special and the scrolling was very sluggish. Marcus couldn't let this one slide, so he started working on an enhanced version for the STE. The gameplay was seriously tweaked as well, and the Misty and Missing Link extensions in STOS were used to create smooth, full directional scrolling. New graphics were ripped. Most notably, the main screen now featured a spaceship from Turken, and some very cool STE only music and samples were used.
Get ready. Entering deck.
A few months later, the updated Storm 94 was released, and this time magazines were raving, even stating Storm 94 was one of the best PD Blast 'em ups. Storm 94 is a very different game compared to Alien Breed. The gameplay is much faster, and arenas are a lot smaller. The missions are always the same. Fight your way through hundreds of aliens, collect key cards to open doors, and eventually find the elevator card and the elevator to go to the next level. But what makes it so different is the time limit. Within 3 minutes or something, you need to have completed the level or you're dead. At first it seems pretty harsh, even unforgiving, with lots of backtracking and trial and error. Each time you play the level, the elevator card is placed on a different spot. Luckily, you get a password every 3 levels or so. And other nice features like the ability to buy ammo and health are also available. There's also a handy map of each arena. And after a few goes, you will see that Storm 94 is incredibly well balanced and a very satisfying game. It might not look as good as Alien Breed, but I think it's a lot more fun. Robin Ball was fascinated by computers from a very young age. He was always on the lookout for arcade games wherever he went. He did his first steps in coding on a Mitsubishi MSX, a machine very similar to the Spectrum in terms of hardware, but with better sprites, a proper keyboard, joystick ports and built-in Microsoft Basic. He wasn't very successful at programming, but Robin wanted to design games and work on their graphics. The MSX, however, was way too primitive, but when the 16-bit line of home computers arrived, he got very interested in their graphical capabilities. So he saved up all his pocket money and got him an Atari ST in the Discovery Pack, which came with a handful of games, the paint package Neochrome and the game programming language STOS. The game in the bundle that was of most interest to him was Carrier Command, and while he could never make head nor tail of it, he was fascinated by the 3D graphics. He started many sprite-based games in STOS, but he never got close to finishing any of them. 2 events, however, changed it all. The first one was the release of 3D Construction Kit by Domark. Robin was finally able to make his own 3D games. The second event was a competition in the magazine The One to create a full game. Robin planned most of the game on paper before he even started using 3D Construction Kit. In the end, the game wasn't selected by The One, so it got released as shareware. Infiltration, as the game was called, was a first-person adventure puzzle game. Robin made 25 quid on the release. Soon after the release of Infiltration, Robin started development on another Freescape game. It took him several years to finish his first-person adventure game called Secret Weapon. And due to the poor shareware response he got on Infiltration, this time around he elected to sell it as licenseware. It was available for £3 through the LAPD label. The game's release was accompanied by a ridiculously unfair review in SD format. And according to Robin, they didn't even read the instructions properly and were unable to play the game. In the meantime, Robin witnessed screenshots of the game Alien Breed in magazines. He thought it could be a fun game. Because he didn't have access to an Amiga, he imagined what the game would play like. And all of a sudden, he was out to create a similar game for the Atari ST. Or so he thought. And this is when Alien Thing was born. And because it wasn't financially worthwhile to do shareware or licenseware games, for this project Robin wanted to try something more commercial. So he got in touch with Victor Wright, head of independently developed software, who put him together with a guy named Martin Milner. Martin had started a developers company called 999 Software with a purpose to develop games for Atari computers. He would do all the programming work, while Robin would do most of the level and game design and all of the graphics using his company Nosferatu Productions. Robin and Martin never met in real life, and Alien Thing was almost completely developed using the good old postal system. Robin did not have a modem back in those days, so he would work on the graphics and the level layouts, and he would post the data together with design ideas to Martin. He would then program everything and send back the results, feedback and ideas of his own. The graphics were created in the program Deluxe Paint. Alien Thing was completely programmed using STOS. The missing link extension was used to smoothen the scrolling, but because they wanted the game to run on 1 MB machines, they ended up only using 8 pixel scrolling with 1 shift. The map layouts were initially sketched on graph paper and then laid out in the STOS map editor. In the meantime, IDS went bankrupt and the duo was on the lookout for a new publisher. After a while, they got scooped up by Tubbyte Software. According to Robin, the whole publishing story had a bit of a rocky history, but it seems eventually Tubbyte did publish the game. When Alien Thing was released at the end of 1995, it was again ST Format who ruined the party. They called Alien Thing a competent recreation of a Ridley Scott scenario, with great sound effects and very nice, diverse level design, but also without any challenge. The game was too easy and you could complete the 11 levels in just a few hours. As an answer to this, Martin knocked up a new version of the game in a few months. Robin was not involved in this one. The levels were slightly redesigned, more aliens were added, and it was much easier to run out of ammo and keycards. When ST Format reviewed the so-called Expert Edition a few months later in February of 1996, the game got a well-deserved 84%. And this version was even published in the USA by a company called Systems for Tomorrow. By the end of the development of Alien Thing, Martin and Robin knew they could do better, so work began on a new version called Alien Thing Director's Cut. This version would greatly increase the variety of enemies and gameplay. It was going to have selectable weapons, more enemy types with different behaviors, more variety in mission objectives, and a Need 2 player mode, where one player could play as the aliens. They'd be able to control the nearest alien until it was killed, and then switch to another one. For the graphics in this one, Robin was inspired by the work of Dan Malone from the Bitmap Brothers, and he wanted to design everything in the same fashion as in the Chaos Engine, with a forced perspective. By that time, Robin was studying fine arts at school, and he had access to 3D Studio Max, which was obvious during the intro of this game. The Falcon version would retain the 256 colors of these intro graphics. Alien Thing Director's Cut was planned for a 1997 release, but sadly never made it. All we got was an excellent 3-level demo. Robin received a whopping £200 in royalties from the first Alien Thing, and by that time the bottom had completely dropped out of the Atari market, and no one was interested in commercial projects on the Atari system anymore. I have been playing the Expert Edition of Alien Thing for the past weeks, and once you get past the clunkier scrolling, you will start to see the absolute beauty of this game. Alien Thing has an incredible variety in missions and is very playable. Compared to Alien Breed, the aliens in this game don't swarm you in an unlimited amount. Instead, they hatch from eggs, making it possible for you to clear out room by room in each level. This is highly satisfying. There are also semi-level bosses, and there is no health bar. Touch an alien or an asset spot and you're dead, but you do get a password after each level. And if you love a good challenge, the Expert Edition is your thing. A lot more tactics are involved in this one. Try it, you won't regret it. Matthieu started his journey in computing on the Tandy TRS-80. This machine came with a book on how to learn BASIC. He was only 9, barely able to read, but he started making his own games. Around 1989, it was time to replace the Tandy with an Amiga or an ST. His dad chose the ST because it came with a high resolution monitor for serious applications. On the ST, Matthieu formed a little group called Epileptical together with some friends from high school. They did a few demos, but nothing official. It wasn't until 1992, when a friend of theirs showed the game Alien Breed on his Amiga, when things really changed. Matthieu wanted to play this game on his Atari ST, but he couldn't find anything alike, so he decided to make a version of his own. At first, he tried programming it in BASIC, but it was too slow. Around that time, Matthieu got an Assembler for Dummies guide. He finished a tutorial, and that was proof the solution was in using assembly language. And this is where the real journey started. Matthieu had to learn assembler as he created the game, and because of this, it took a while for the product to be finished. Development started in 1993, and the game was released in 1996. In the end, Matthieu managed to create a game running in 50 frames per second on the Falcon. The STE version was toned down to a constant 25 frames per second. The graphics were mostly done by high school buddy François Winchell, and even though they look almost identical to the ones in Alien Breed, nothing was ripped. The guys did not have an Amiga, so François did it all from memory. He was also inspired by the work of H.R. Giger, who designed the original Xenomorph from the movie Alien. Since Alien Blast is an STE only game, we are treated with some atmospheric sampled music by Romain Moreau-Gobard and some really haunting digital sound effects. Matthieu explains he got lucky. One night while coding, they were playing these weird nature sound effects on the radio. He took a tape and recorded over 2 hours of sounds, which they used snippets of as a bass in the game. And some fun facts: the digital speech you hear in game when picking up ammo, key cards and health is the voice of François. And the sound effect used in the final scene when the alien queen smashes the robot is the sound of Matthieu smacking his trash can. When Alien Blast was finally finished, a demo version was released, and if you wanted to play the complete game, you had to pay a nominal fee to the guys from Epileptical. But since it was 1996, only 2 or 3 copies were ever sold. Alien Blast clearly is a labor of love. The game looks and sounds amazing, starting straight away from the eerie intro. These guys are clearly fans of the genre. There are 12 missions for you to complete, which become gradually more difficult and which will have you on the edge of your seat. In the first few levels, the aliens move slow, but after a while, you can't outrun them anymore, and you have to use your ammo carefully. And at the end of the game, as in true Alien tradition, the Queen awaits you. A lot of attention to detail has been made, and there are even 2 mini-games hidden somewhere. Alien Blast lets you play a little game of Tron or Pong. And also worth mentioning is the fantastic 2-player mode. Matthieu explains it took them ages before finally deciding that 2 players will always stay on screen simultaneously. Even though Alien Blast is not as colorful as Alien Breed, and while it's a bit slower, it's the closest thing we have on the ST. So if you're a fan of creepy action shooters, you cannot afford to miss it. Phew, that's a wrap. Honestly, all the games covered today have got their own qualities and are excellent in their own right. Which one should you play? Well, I suggest to play them all, because they're just great. That's it, I'm off. See you all in the next video, thank you for watching, and stay Atari. Bye.